This conference will now be recorded.
Shall we start, sir?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Just for 1 minute, sir. I will just. Good afternoon to all the participants, and good afternoon to our today's session resource person, Dr. Sanjay Kumar, sir. And I welcome back Dr. Sanjay Kumar, sir. And I haven't hand over the session to Dr. Sanjay Kumar, sir, regarding the topic knowledge representation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sridhar, sir. And good afternoon
Welcome,
to
sir.
all the participants. I hope my screen is visible.
Sir, it's visible, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome to session 6 and day 2 of this AICT Atal FDP on artificial intelligence. And in this session, I will discuss about knowledge representation, which is quite an old topic, but it has a very much important value in the case of artificial intelligence, or in order to make a meaningful conclusion from a set of facts, figures, and act of knowing. We are using the knowledge representation in artificial intelligence. So in this talk, I will cover these topics. I will tell you about what is a knowledge, why we need a representation of the knowledge, what kind of knowledge we are going to represent it, and how to infer some meaningful conclusion from such representation. Whenever we are representing a particular knowledge in some representation, then how to carry out the resolution process, which we call as we are finding some meaningful conclusion from a set of sentences. So this representation we will see in two different angles. One is called as propositional logic, another is called as predicate logic, or we call as first order predicate logic. So there are different way to represent the knowledge, right? Like if a person want to express something, then he can express in any language. He may give in express the thing in the English language, or Hindi language, or Telugu language, or any language the person has knowing about. He can express such that the receiver can also, or the person to whom he is speaking, he is also able to understand that particular language. So here we are going to see the propositional logic and first order predicate logic. First we will take a couple of knowledge. Based upon that, we are going to represent such knowledge, and we will find some meaningful conclusion from that knowledge by applying the process of resolution. And I will also tell you the relationship between the knowledge representation, or you can say you can apply such applications in order to carry out from the chaining process. The chaining process may be a forward chaining process or backward chaining process, especially in the expert system. Whenever we are designing an expert system in artificial intelligence, we require such concept to represent the knowledge and perform the resolution process. So let us start from the very basic part. What is a knowledge? The definition of knowledge is it can be defined as a body of fact or principles accumulated by humankind, or the act or fact and state of knowledge. We are reading the book, we are gaining the knowledge. We are reading newspaper, we are gaining the knowledge. We are traveling from one place to another place, we are looking various scenarios from which we are gaining knowledge, right? And in artificial intelligence, we have a huge word that is called intelligent. Okay, when you have the capability, or when you have that much capacity, or you can say the way we can express or we can apply knowledge in a particular situation, then we call that one as a intelligence. Okay, so we are generally saying that person is intelligent person. The meaning is that he has knowledge and he has applied the knowledge in the right place, in the right time, in the right application. Then we can say that is intelligence. But here we are trying to understand what is knowledge, how to accumulate such knowledge. You can accumulate knowledge from anywhere in the world. Not only reading the book is we are gaining knowledge, by observing various environment also we are gaining the knowledge. See some example. I am saying Joy is a person. I am saying Joy is tall. Okay, so it is a simple fact. For example, I am saying if a person's height is this much, then he is tall. Or if a person's height is below this much, then he is short. So it is a fact. Joy is tall means he is always tall only, right? So it is a simple fact. Similarly, I am saying Bill loves sweet. So there is two persons, one is Bill, another is sweet. So Bill is loves sweet. So there is two persons, one is Bill, another is sweet. We are expressing their things in the form of a relation, that is love. So it is also a knowledge, right? But in comparison to the previous one, that is Joy is tall, where we are talking about a particular person and its attribute. But here we are expressing one person's thought with other persons. Okay, in the view of other person, we are expressing it. So it is a complex binary relation. Similarly, we can express a very complex relation also. Like here I mentioned, Sam is a person. Sam has learned the use of recursion. We are this recursion is a part of our algorithm design, right? We are using recursion, or in the C++ you may heard about recursion. So Sam has learned the use of recursion to manipulate the linked list, a type of data structure, in several programming languages. So in comparison to the example 1 and example 2, this is a more complex statement. Here you are doing a lot of things. You are telling a person's expertise. You are telling that a person is learning a particular thing. You are telling how a person is applying a particular thing, right? So we are expressing the relations between a person and a more abstract concept or abstract programming concept. Altogether, we can say these are called as our knowledge. But our topic of discussion is how to represent such knowledge in some language or in some logic. For example, we want to represent this thing in the predicate logic or propositional logic. Like we are expressing our thoughts in various languages. So if you represent such a thing in some language, so by using some mathematical expression or by using some theorem, we can make a meaningful conclusion. Like in court also, if you go for High Court or Supreme Court or any court, the judgment is based upon what evidence you have collected. So if each and every evidence, whatever you have collected, if I will infer everything, I will say that this is the statement by a witnesser. Again, another statement by another witness. So I am combining these two people's statement in order to build a new statement. Okay, how I am doing that new statement? That is because of the thoughts or the facts told by some persons who has seen a particular incident. So by looking into that, what we are doing, we are making a conclusion. So the basic idea to represent the knowledge is to finally tell that whether it is a particular conclusion is true or false. I'll tell you a particular scenario, or in the childhood also, whenever we are reading English subject, there is a passage, you have to read the passage and you have a set of questionnaires, right? And these questionnaires depends upon that passage, right? If you understood the passage correctly, or if you can infer something from that passage, then only you can express the answers of that question. The similar kind of thing we want to do with respect to a particular problem. That is called as a knowledge representation. Knowledge representation may not be only in the form of mathematical expression. It may be with respect to graphs, with respect to the frames, with respect to various scenarios, with respect to various type of representation. It is not only restricted to the mathematical expression, but in today's lecture, whatever we will see, that is restricted to the mathematical representation only, but it is not the way. You can go for any type of representation in order to make a meaningful conclusion. So knowledge may be your procedural or it may be declarative, right? If you want to solve a algebraic equation, you need a lot of formulas, right? By applying such formulas, you are solving a particular algebraic equations. And these solutions are depending upon the theorems or formulas, and these you are applying in various steps. Okay, that means the knowledge, whatever you are getting by applying the process of theorem and formulas to solve a particular algebraic knowledge is algebraic equation is called the compiled knowledge. Somebody, suppose you want to know about a particular person, you have asked your friend, how is that particular person? Then he is telling, expressing his view. You asked another person, you got another view. So what you are doing, by you can compile these things in order to finally make a conclusion that whether that particular person is good or not. So this is the procedural knowledge, which is a compiled knowledge related to the performance of some task. But declarative knowledge is not like that. Declarative knowledge, we are not dependent upon the compiled knowledge, rather than we are go for the passive knowledge. Like in the database, we have the personal data of many persons, right? And by looking into that, we are expressing the statements of the fact about a particular world or a particular person. Okay, so such type of knowledge is called as the declarative knowledge. Similarly, we have another type of knowledge that is called as heuristic knowledge. Like suppose I will tell you, you identify fault in a particular circuit. So if you identify, if you want to identify a fault in a particular circuit, then you should have some built-in knowledge about that particular circuit, how it is organized, where there may be a fault, what is the connection in that particular circuit. Okay, so this type of knowledge you require both things, that is procedural as well as declarative. So it is a special type of knowledge. Okay, so how you are applying such a solution to a particular problem using heuristic knowledge, that is by applying both of things, that is compiled knowledge as well as basic. And you have some knowledge prior to that. Based upon that, you are locating the fault in a particular TV set or particular electrical circuit. Okay. So if you are applying this heuristic knowledge, your decision is depends upon the solutions, whatever you are finding in each and every steps. Suppose you have taken 3 steps, you are assuming that you are close to the solution. Somebody has reached to the step number 7, so you should be more closer to the solution. Okay, but if you go for the heuristic, sometimes heuristic is also not producing the result. Or if a heuristic is made for a particular thing, that may not be applicable for other things. That may also possible. Okay, and this heuristic knowledge is a type of reasoning, may not always be correct. It is not necessarily correct. You are finding the fault in the system, but there may not be a fault. Or wherever you are pointing, there may be a fault, there may not be a fault in that location, right? Such type of things are called the heuristic knowledge. Next, there is a confusion always. What is knowledge? What is data? What is information? So you know, whenever you have a data and you are processing it, you are getting information. Like if I tell you to calculate average mark in a particular class, so each and every student mark is called as your data. And whenever you are finding the average mark, you are processing the data, which is nothing but individual mark of the student. Okay, that is the data you have collected, you have processed it, then you are getting information. Now we will see what is the difference between these 3 terms, especially what is the difference between data and knowledge. So let us take an example. Suppose the physician is treating a patient, he is asking a lot of questions to the patient in order to identify what disease the patient may have, right? In that context, let us see what is knowledge and data. Here, the patient's record, or you can say the past history of the patient. The patient has a health card. If you look into the past history, you can see what are the medicines, okay, what are the drugs the particular patient is taking, okay, and what are the different types of tests and their results in the past history. So that is called into data. That is not the knowledge, that is the data. So after seeing these things, the physician will make a conclusion based upon what he learned in the medical school or what he done in the house surgeon time or in the experience time, whatever he has seen. Based upon that, he will tell you what disease that particular patient may have. So both things, the data and his prior experience, both will look into. Then only you can infer a particular disease in that particular patient. So such type of things is called as knowledge, where your past knowledge or past experience and the records of the patient all are need to be observed carefully in order to make a conclusion. Right? So this is the difference between your data and knowledge. Now, if you see the belief, so belief you can define that any meaningful and coherent expression that can be represented. We are believing. Suppose somebody is telling me that he is good, so I am believing him, because in my past experience I have seen whatever recommendation that particular person has given, and that is true, right? That's why I have believed. But if you see in the overall sense, belief may be true or it may be false. Somebody may give you false information as well. But when you represent such thing, you can, if you represent hypothesis maybe you can make a particular statement and finally you can make that whether the hypothesis is true or false. So hypothesis is generally a justified belief. When you represent a particular thing in the hypothesis, you are giving some evidence. By looking into that evidence, you can make a conclusion. Okay, but the hypothesis also may not be true. Like whenever you go for the statistical analysis, you are defining something as a null hypothesis. And our objective is to reject the null hypothesis. Suppose I am saying the mark of the students in each and every subject is equal. So that is a null hypothesis. So I have to prove with some evidence that at least the mean of two different subjects is different. That's why it is not known to be true. But when you go for knowledge, knowledge is nothing but a true justified belief. So you need evidence. You have to prove that that is true. Right? Then only you can say that is a knowledge. Similarly, we have meta knowledge. Like we have metadata, we are talking about the data about data, different properties of the data without going for the content of the data. Similarly, we are maintaining the meta knowledge. That is knowledge about the knowledge. We are not going that what is the true justified belief, rather than we are maintaining different properties of the knowledge in the case of meta knowledge. So let us see the first order predicate logic. Before going to the first order predicate logic, I will also introduce about the propositional logic. So here the logic is a formal method of reasoning. You have given with a set of sentences, you have to represent in the form of logic. Okay. In the propositional logic, it is having limited expressions or limited representation, but first order predicate logic, you have a wide representation in comparison to the propositional logic. And these logics are quite old, but it is used in the representation of the knowledge in order to make a particular inference. So basically, the input to the first order predicate logic is nothing but a natural language like English-like sentences. Okay, then you have to convert such English-like sentences into predicates or functions, variables, constants, quantifiers, and you can connect different variables or different expressions you can make so that you can do the process of inference. Okay, And inference rules may then be applied once you convert these natural language sentences or English-like sentences into in the form of predicates, functions, variable, constants, quantifiers, or logical connectives. Then you can make the inference. Okay, you can combine any two expressions, or you can take two expressions and make some mathematical operation in order to generate third expression. That can be possible by the help of process of inference, right? And finally, you have to make a conclusion that whatever statement is given to you, whether that is true or not. If it is a true justified belief, then you can say that is a knowledge. Otherwise, you have to discard it. Okay, so you can see a very simple representation, although I will tell you these things later. Suppose I have an English statement that is all employees of the AI software company are programmers, right? So I am talking about AI software company, right? And I am talking about the programmer. I am saying all employees who is working in the AI software company, they are programmers. So what I have done, I have written X is a employee in the AI software company. So I have written AI hyphen software hyphen co hyphen employee X. You can also write A of X also. There is no problem. But in order to generalize things, in order to give more specific one, I have taken a very big one. AI hyphen software hyphen co hyphen employee. It indicates that X is a employee of your AI software company. And I want to represent X is a programmer. So writing programmer X, you can write also P of X. There is no problem, right? So what I have written all. All means it is applicable to each and every employee of the AI software company. So if X is a person who is working in AI software company, he is a programmer. So I have written for all X. It is applicable to for all X, not limited to a particular person. If you claim that he is an employee, he is a programmer. So that indicates for all X, AI software company X implies programmer X. It indicates if this part is true, means if X is an employee of AI software company, then X must be a programmer. Right? It is also true. If the first part is true, the second part is true, and it is applicable for all the employees that are a part of the AI software company. So here you can see I have taken two predicates. One is AI software employee, and another is programmer X. Okay, and I have taken a variable X so that I can take any employee. It is not applied to the Ram who is working in an AI software company, or Syan or Lakshman, whatever may be. I am generalizing it by the help of a variable X. For example, you can say Jim, okay, is a person who is an employee of AI software company. Okay, if you are claiming Jim is a AI software company employee, then you can make a meaningful conclusion that Jim is also a programmer. Right here, I have taken the X value as equal to Jim. I am pointing to a particular person. So here you can say Jim is a constant, or whenever I am referring Ram, Shyam, whatever may be, that is a constant. Okay. So now come to the propositional logic. In propositions are the elementary atomic sentences or formulas, or they are called as a well-formed formula, or in short we are called WFF, right? And these propositions may be either true or false. Suppose I will tell something as a proposition, your conclusion is either true or false. You cannot say it is likely to be true or likely to be false. So there is two value you have, just like a binary logic, your value is 0 or 1. Either it is true or false. Every proposition or every well-formed formula, finally you have to say it is true or false. Like here you can say, I am saying it is raining. You have to give answer whether it is true or false. You cannot say that after 5 minutes there may be a rain. Okay. Or my car is painted silver. Answer is true or false. John and Sue have 5 children. True or false. Snow is white. True or false. Proposition, people live on the moon. True or false. So every proposition, your final value is either true or false. There is absolutely no other values. Sometimes we are going for compound proposition. In the previous one, whatever you have said, that is a simple proposition. They are not combined with another proposition. So whenever you want to represent something as a compound proposition, you have to represent such propositions using some connectives, logical connectives. The logical connectives may be not, maybe or, maybe if then, okay, or it may be and, okay, or it may be if and only if, okay. So like here you can see, it is raining is a simple proposition. The wind is blowing is also a simple statement. I have connected these two propositions in order to make it a compound proposition using and, right? Or I am saying here the moon is made up of green cheese, or it is not. So or is a logical connective which is connecting two propositions. Similarly, if you study hard, you will be rewarded. So you are using if. If is also used to make a compound proposition. Or the sum of 10 and 20 is not 50. So this and not we are using as a logical connective in order to form a compound proposition. Right? Simply we are going for simple proposition. Sometimes we are going for compound proposition in order to represent in the propositional logic or the first order predicate logic. Okay, if you are going to represent a sentence as proposition, you use capital letter. Okay, sometimes we are using capital letter followed by digits, like I write T300 or F400. Okay, and in proposition, generally it is true or false. You can use a negation in order to mathematical representation. If you are using this tilde symbol, it represents not or negation. If you are using this ampersand symbol, okay, we call it as and or we call it conjunction. If you are using this one, then it is called as or disjunction. If you are using the arrow mark towards the right arrow mark, then we call it a if then, that is nothing but implication. If bidirection is there, then if and only if, or we call it a double implication. Similarly, you can use various brackets, comma, period in order to represent the proposition, right? Like here you can see, I am representing it is raining by R. I have taken a capital letter R in order to represent it is raining. The wind is blowing. I have taken the letter B to represent the wind is blowing. Okay. So here R and B are the proposition which is equivalent to representing it is raining and it is blowing. So what I have used? I have used a logical connectives. So as I am representing R by it is raining, B by the wind is blowing, here I am writing and. So the entire expression I can represent in a mathematical form, that is R and B. And we can use the bracket. Okay, in order to be a better representation, we are putting open parenthesis and close parenthesis. Okay, now you see, just I have changed the statement. It is raining. Okay, that is our R, and the wind is blowing. Okay, that is our B. But the question is here, the modification is that it is or. So either it is raining or wind is blowing, or it may be both. Both means it is raining as well as the wind is blowing. Okay, so you can write R disjunction B. Disjunction means either R is true or B is true, or R and B both are true. That is also allowed. But whenever you are taking this and, it indicates that R is true as well as B is true. If both are true, then only it is finally it is true. Otherwise, it is false. Okay, so if P and Q are the formulas, or you can say the propositions, then the followings are also formulas. Okay, followings are also called as proposition. It may be a simple proposition, it may be a compound proposition. For example, you can see P is a proposition or formula, then negation P is also a formula, P and Q is also a formula, P disjunction Q is a formula, P implication Q is a formula, P by implication Q is also a formula, right? Or if you are taking a compound formula like our compound proposition, you are combining many things. Like writing P and negation Q or R implication, Q implication S. So whenever you are expressing such compound formulas, in order to evaluate that particular thing, you have to ensure that what is the precedence among various logical connectives. Like you are using your ampersand and okay, you have used negation, that is the tilde symbol, and you have used the disjunction, you have used by implication. You have not used a by implication. Apart from that, you have used other logical connectives. So there should be some precedence among these things in order to evaluate the expression. Like we are saying bracket is fast division, or Badmas rule is there, right? BDMS, right? Division, multiplication, then subtraction. There is a proper sequence is there how to evaluate an expression. So if you see, in order to evaluate this expression, the highest priority is your negation. So negation is the first priority. Okay. Then AND is the next priority, OR is the next priority, implication is the next priority, and the last priority is by implication or double implication, right? So if you want to evaluate the expression like this, so how you are going to represent? First, you are going to calculate negation of Q. Okay, that's why we are putting a bracket here, negation of Q. Once negation Q is over, you have to take AND. So I am putting a bracket here, right? Then once this expression is over, the next one is your OR. So we have to put a bracket here, right? Then there is a by implication. Sorry, implication. Implication means you have to take a implication. Similarly, you have a OR here, right? So you have to take a OR here. Finally, you have to apply the by implication or double implication. I'll tell you the truth table of implication and by implication so that the idea will be more clear. But this way, you are going to evaluate a compound formula, right? Then the semantics. Semantics means meaning. Like whenever we are evaluating a particular programming language, we call it a syntax. Syntax is you are following a particular structure. But by following a particular structure, it may not be semantically correct, right? Like we are writing A is equal to B divided by 0, semicolon. So it is syntactically correct, but it is semantically not correct, right? So semantic or meaning of the sentence is just the value true or false. That is, it is an assignment of a truth value to a particular sentence. Like I have written, it is raining, so final answer is yes or no, means true or false. And you are doing a lot of interpretation. You are giving values true and false to each and every propositions in order to calculate a particular compound formulas. Like here you can see an interpretation for a sentence or a group of sentences is an assignment of a truth value to each propositional symbol. For example, here you can see I have written P and not Q. So sometimes the P may be true or P may be false as well. Similarly, if I take Q as a proposition, Q may be true or Q may be false. Similarly, if I take not Q, then you can say not Q means it is false here, it is true. So each and every proposition can be true or false. Somebody may take interpretation 1 where he has taken true to P, false to Q. Another person has taken interpretation 2 in which he has taken true to P but true to Q, right? Like that, if you calculate with 2 variables, you are going to get 4 distinct interpretations. So you have to evaluate that particular formula or the sentence using number of interpretations. If you represent in the form of number of interpretation, then you will know with a given value of given particular formula, and by applying the true or false value to the proposition, what may be the meaningful conclusion. So these are the various rules we are using in the propositional logic. So you know that P we are writing for true, F we are writing for false. Negation of false, negation of F is also true, negation of true is false. True and not true is always, if you see T and T dash, right? T dash is a true statement, then it is true, right? But if you are taking the expression P and not P and not P, if P is true, then not P is false. So true and false is resulting your final expression is false. But here I am taking T days is a true statement. This is not the negation of T. Negation of T is not T, right? But here T days is another statement. So if this statement and another statement both are true, then it is also true. Suppose one expression is false, right? One part is false. One statement you have written end with another statement or another way. It is a compound proposition. One is false, then the result is false. Similarly, if one part is true, then we are depending. If A is there in the other part and you are using OR, then it is true, because in the OR case, if one of the statement is true, other statements are also true. Similarly, you can see other rules. Based upon that, you can make that whether a particular statement is true or not, right? Like here you can see, suppose I am writing by implication. This is the by implication, P by implication Q. What it indicates, that is P implies Q and Q implies P, right? So in order to calculate the by implication, what you have to determine, you have to define P implies Q as well as Q implies P, and you have to do the conjunction, right? See here, a expression is given to you, or a compound formula or proposition is given to you. I will tell you to make a meaningful conclusion. I have given the data as an interpretation, is my interpretation. I am saying assign the true value to P. P value should be true, and assign false to Q. False to Q means negation of Q is your Q, right? If Q is false, negation of Q is also, the negation of Q will result Q true, and R is also false. So you can say true and true. Okay, because Q is false, so negation Q is true. So true and true, the result is true, right? And T implies F is false. If you are going for true implies false, the resultant is false. Apart from these, other things are true. Like T implies T is true. Okay. False implies true is true. And false implies false is also true. Apart from these three cases, only this case where the first statement is true and the next statement is false, the resultant is false. So here you are going to get false. Okay, and Q is also false. Okay, so false or with false, the final resultant is false. So this result is based upon the interpretation I. But if I will tell you, go for another interpretation where P is true, Q is false, and R is true, then the result will again, it may change also, right? And here we have applied the rule number 2, that is this one, and rule number 3, and rule number 6, and rule number 5 in order to make a conclusion that the entire expression is false subjected to this particular interpretation, right? Next, there are several properties used in the propositional logic. First property is called a satisfiable. Satisfiable means a statement is satisfiable if there is some interpretation for which it is true. Like you have 4 interpretations. If you have 2 variables P and Q, you have 4 interpretations. One is false, false. Another is false, true. Another is true, false. Another is true, true. Right? So these are the 4 interpretations. So if out of these 4 interpretations, if some interpretation your result is true, then you can say that is satisfied. But if for all cases a sentence is contradictory or unsatisfiable, if there is no interpretation for it true, I will take an expression for which I am taking this as an input. For all interpretation, the result is false. Then we can say that is a contradiction. And valid or tautologies is nothing but for all type of inputs, if your output is true. A sentence is said to be valid or tautology if it is true for every interpretation. Whether you take false false, you take false true, or you take true false, or you take true true. In each and every case, it is true. Then we can say it is a valid or tautology. Similarly, the next one is your equivalence. 2 sentences are equivalent. For example, I will tell you find the truth table of P implies Q. and also find the truth table of not P or Q. So if you find the truth table of this first sentence and truth table of the second statement sentence, then you are going to get the same truth table, same outcome. Okay, so here these two statements are equivalent. Yes, why it is equivalent? Because the same truth value under every interpretation. In each and every interpretation, you are getting the same truth. Right? Now come to logical consequence. A sentence is a logical consequence of another. Like I will take a lot of facts, like S1 I am taking, S2 I am taking, like that I am taking Sn. Finally, I am telling S is the logical consequence of S1, S2 up to Sn. Like a student is appear in 8 different semesters, finally he is getting a certificate. Okay, so if he has passed in all the semesters and cleared all the papers, then only we can say the student is graduated from a particular institute, right? So that is a logical consequence. So a sentence is a logical consequence of another if it is satisfied by all interpretations who is satisfied the first. So if you find the truth table also, you can see the truth table of all the values, all interpretations you have taken, and the logical consequence, both are true one, right? So if you are taking a valid statement, the valid statement means all the interpretation it is true. So valid statements are satisfiable. Because satisfiable case, you are pointing to some interpretation. But valid statement case, you are pointing to all interpretation. Okay, that's why a valid statement is always satisfiable. But converse is not necessarily true. You cannot say that satisfiable means it is valid. Because satisfiable, it is pointing to some interpretation. Some is not all, right? But all is some, right? So these are the various properties with respect to the statements. And you know that P or not P is always valid, right? If P is true, not P is false. If P is false, not P is true. And it is a OR operation, okay? Or we call it a disjunction. So it is always a valid. P and not P, always a contradiction. If P is true, it is false. If P is false, it is true. As you have taken and, that is conjunction, so it is a contradiction. If P is satisfiable but not valid, satisfiable means it is true for all some interpretation, but it is not true for all interpretation. Like P value may be true. True means it is satisfiable, but there is another value is also there, that is false. So it is not true in this case. So it is not valid or tautology, but it is satisfiable. Similarly, P and negation of negation P is equivalent, because negation will cancel out, right? Two negations, or you are writing P bar and bar in the digital logic, so they are equivalent. And P is a logical consequence of P and Q. Since any interpretation for which P and Q is true, P is also true. If you have taken this one and find the truth table for all interpretation, if P and Q is true and P is also true, right? Then you can say P is logical consequence of P and Q, right? Or because all interpretation, whatever you are taking for P and Q, and where it is true, and P is also true in that case. That's why we are saying logical consequence. So this is the first theorem. What I told in mathematically, a sentence S is a logical consequence of S1 to Sn if and only if you take end of S1, S2, Sn, implication of S is always valid. Okay. Second theorem is the sentence of a sentence S is a logical consequence of S1 to Sn if and only if S1 to S2 and S3, Sn and not S is inconsistent, right? So like you can see S1, S2, Sn implication of S. Okay, if I will take S is the logical consequence, so I am taking S, right? Or you take this one, S1, S2 in the first theorem is S, okay? So you know that the P implication of Q is equivalent to not P or Q. So that is called as our modus ponens, right? I'll tell you in later in another proof. So as they are equivalent, I can write this part S1 and S2 Sn implication of S is represented. This you take as P. This first part you take as a P. This part you take as a Q. Then you can write negation of P. This is your negation. This part is your P. or this is your truth, right? Then you can see, you can take negation, you can cancel out. Similarly, if you perform, finally you are going to get this one, which is your inconsistent. Here you can see this particular is inconsistent. So a sentence S is a logical consequence of S1 to Sn. So when S is a logical consequence of S1 to Sn, the formula S1, S2, Sn, S is called a theorem. Okay, and S is the conclusion, right? And sometimes we are representing like this: S is logically implies or logically entails S. Okay, written as S. This particular operator we are using, yeah, that is called as logically entails S, where S is your logical consequence of S1 to Sn. Okay, so we are simply representing this part as a capital S. So you can see here we are assuming this one, that is it. That's why mathematically we are representing like this. Okay, these are the various laws we are applying to represent some. So in order to do the reference, the inference, or in order to perform the resolution process, we are applying some laws. Like first law is called as idempotency. It indicates P or P is always P, right? Whether P is true or false, if you have taken P or P, that is P, and if you have taken P and P is also P. Irrespective of this operator, the assumption of conjunction, your output is P only. Associativity is the second law, which says that P or Q, okay, bracket, then or R is same as P or Q or R. Okay. Similarly, it can be applied. Associativity is also applied to the conjunction as well. Commutative says that P or Q is same as Q or P. So you can interchange their order. There is no difference. Like P or Q, P and Q is equal to Q and P. Okay. And P by implication of Q or double implication of Q is Q double implication of P. But don't take P implies Q is equal to Q implies P. They are not equal. They are different. Right? So commutative law is not applied to your implication, but is applicable to or and by implication. Come to distributive law. Distributive law is say that P and Q or R. So you can take P and Q or P and R. Okay, you can take P and Q and P and R. Similarly, it can be applied or over and, or it can be applied and over R. Okay, so you can see P or Q implies R. So P or R, or it may be P or R. P or Q and P or R. So that is called as your distributed property. And the very famous De Morgan's law, you know that P or Q negation is nothing but negation of P. If you insert this negation in front of the proposition, it is negation P and negation Q. And P negation over P and Q is nothing but negation P or negation Q. Okay. Similarly, conditional elimination is P implies Q is not P or Q. These things you can also verify by using the truth table also. Right? You can take truth table and prove that all the expressions are equal to each other. They are equivalent to each other. Left hand side is equivalent to your right hand side. Similarly, biconditional implication, that is P by implication Q is nothing but P implies Q and Q implies Q. Okay, these are the equivalent laws which you can apply to propositional logic as well as the predicate logic. See here, I want to just prove a simple thing. Just I want to prove that the negation P or Q is same as your P implies Q or not. See here, if you do that truth table by taking true, 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 false, false, true, false, true, and false, false. If you evaluate this one, negation P or Q and P implies Q, you are getting the same truth table. As you are getting the same truth table, you can say these two statements or these two compound proposition or compound formulas, they are equivalent to each other, right? And in order to calculate by implication, you have to calculate P implies Q and Q implies P, and then you have to calculate, you have to apply the AND operation or the conjunction. Okay, then you will get, this is the truth table in the case of by implication. Okay, next is let us apply a simple formula that is called a modus ponens. In modus ponens, what we are taking? If you are taking P is a proposition and P implies Q is a compound proposition, right? Then if P is true and P implies Q is true, then you can say Q is also true. Why? Because P, and you know the equivalent of P implies Q is not P or Q. Okay, so what will happen? This P and negation P will be cancelled out, then finally you are going to get Q. Okay, for example, if I am taking Joy is a father, which I am representing by P. Okay, so Joy is father is also represented by P, and Joy has a child is represented by Q. Then I can say Joy has a child, that is Q. Right? In this way, you can infer a particular thing. You have a knowledge P, you have a compound statement, which is also a knowledge, that is P implies Q. Then you can represent it in a proposition and find a meaningful conclusion, that is Q is also true, right? Similarly, there is a chain rule is also there. P implies Q, Q implies R, then P implies R. Like here, you can take an example. Programmer likes LISP is a particular language which is used in artificial intelligence. Prolog is also used in artificial intelligence. So one of the languages is LISP. And programmer hates COBOL. Means if the programmer likes LISP, the programmer hates COBOL. Similarly, another statement. So this is your P. First part is your P, and second part is your Q. Okay. And you have taken programmer hates COBOL. So that is your Q. And programmer likes recursion. That is your R. So P implies Q and Q implies R. So I can say if the programmer likes LISP, the programmer likes recursion by applying the chain rule. So that you can make a inference. You have taken knowledges or propositions, okay, in the form of the capital letter here. We are representing proposition by capital letter, and you are making a inference, right, by applying the chain rule. So that if a text about a particular scenario or particular environment is given to you, you can apply, you can find, you can combine two statements in order to make a simple statement, right? So there is another inference rule also is there, that is called as substitution. In substitution, it says that if S is a valid sentence, S dash is derived from S by consistent substitution of proposition in S, then S is also valid. Okay. So if S is a valid statement, then S dash is also, you can, if you are putting in that, it is also valid. Like here you can see P implies P disjunction with not P is valid. Then if I replace P with Q, then Q or not Q is also valid. Similarly, you can see simplification. I am taking P and Q. I am inferring P is true. That is called as simplification. Similarly, conjunction. I am taking P and Q. I am taking P and Q, or I am taking P by implication of Q. Then I can say not Q, implication not P. If you are transposition, applying the transposition law, you just reverse it with negation. Here you can see P implies Q. I have taken not Q implies not P. Right, and these rules you have maybe studied, but these rules are required in order to apply in the knowledge representation. Okay, see here, the limitation of the propositional logic you can see here. Like here there is an example, like all students in computer science must take Pascal. So if you are a computer science student, you have to take Pascal. So you can write that a particular student P, okay, and must take Pascal. Pascal is, let's say you are representing by PA. You can write PA also. So if P is a student, he must take Pascal, okay, and you are informing that in the second statement that John is a computer science major. Okay, all students, if they belongs to computer science, they have to take Pascal. But in the second statement, you are saying John is a computer science major. So here, what you can make a conclusion, somebody may make a conclusion that John has to take the Pascal. That is the limitation of the propositional logic, because it is not possible to conclude in this logic that John must take Pascal. If John is having the computer science major, does not mean that he is going to take Pascal. So this is the serious limitation with respect to the propositional logic. So in order to express its power, in order to avoid this limitation, where we are generalizing the facts by the help of variables, we are not pointing to a particular person. So in order to avoid this one, the first order predicate logic was developed. Okay. So in the first order predicate logic, we are using, in addition to whatever we discussed till now, we are using some of the other syntax, like we are using connectives, as we already discussed. We are using the quantifiers also. Quantifiers we are using for all x and for all y, for all z. That is called as your universal quantifier, or we are going for existential quantifier. Okay. If you are generalizing it, you use the universal quantifier if it is applicable to all. If it is limited to someone, or you are pointing to a particular one, or someone in a sentence you have someone, then you can go for this existential quantification. And here we are representing the constants by the letter A, B, C, or a group of letter, or a value like 5.3 minus 21, or you can take a combination of alphabets and number, okay, in order to represent the constant. Similarly, variable is represented by the end of the alphabet, or in ending the alphabet we have x, y, z. So these things will be said, these things will be taken as a variable, right? Variable is the end of the alphabets we are taking, and constant case we are taking beginning of the alphabets. In order to represent something in the first order predicate logic, we can use the functions, or you can use the predicate. In the function case, you can see f is a function, g is a function, h is a function. We are generally taking as a zero-ary function. It is not having, like we are writing f of x. Here we are not taking x. We are simply saying f. That's why it is called zero-ary function. If you are using x, then it is called as a one-ary function. Sometimes we are using f of x comma y. Like I told you that x loves y, or John loves y. So in that case, you are going for a binary function. Okay. Similarly, if you want to represent a predicate, generally predicate is represented in the form of a capital letter. You can use P. Like if I write P of x, then it is a predicate. But if I write f of x, it is a function, right? And we are using various terms like constants, variables, function in order to express the knowledge in the first order predicate logic. Okay, we are using the literal. Literals are the atoms or its negation. If you are writing P and negation of P, so P is a literal and negation P is also a literal, right? And you can use the following conjunctions in order to represent the knowledge, right? So that you can apply a particular operation in a proper way. You can represent in a proper way so that you will know that which operation need to be executed first. Okay, let us see this example. So I have three statements. First one is all employees earning $1,400 or more per year pay taxes. So I want to express such type of statements in the form of first order predicate logic. So here you can see, as I have written all employees. So all means it is nothing but your for all x. If x is an employee, I am talking about all the employees. So what I have taken? I have taken ex is nothing but x is an employee, right? Here the uppercase. Why I have taken uppercase? We are representing uppercase by predicate and lowercase by function, right? And in the second statement, it is some employees are sick today. Some means you have to use there exist, or we can call it a existential quantifier. You have to use. Next, it is saying no employee earns more than the president. So let us take PX as the X is the president of that particular company, right? And income of the president as well as the income of the employee, I have to represent in the form of a function, that is I of X. So that is nothing but income of X. And in order to compare the salary of a particular person with president or with another person, so I have taken GE of UB. So G is a predicate, so that is a binary predicate which takes U and B. What it indicates? U is greater than equal to V. Okay. And in this statement E2, there is a question about sick today, so I am writing S of X. It indicates that X is an employee and X is sick today. And Tx is nothing but X is a taxpayer. So by the help of these variable your predicate and functions, you can express these sentences into first order predicate logic. Like here you can say Ex, and if the salary of the person Ix, Ex is indicates X is a employee, Ix indicate X is a income of X. If income of X is greater than 1400 and X is an employee, then X is a taxpayer. So that will be the equivalent statement of the E1. Come to E2. It is saying some employees are sick today. If Y is an employee, then Y is sick today. Why I have not represented in X? Because it may happen that both statements are different from each other. That's why I am representing with Y. Sometimes whenever we are inferring a particular thing, I have to claim X is equal to Y. Then only it is true. Rather than going for different variable representation, I am combining these two by writing X is equal to Y. Third statement, no employee earns more than the president. So if president is Y and employee is X, so IX, income of X and income of Y is not greater than. That's why I'm writing negation of Y. But prior to that, I have to say X is an employee and Y is the president. Okay. So in this way, you can represent the English-like sentences or natural language into first order predicate logic. Once you have defined, once you have declared, or once you have represented in the form of such a representation, then you can apply the process of resolution in order to make a meaningful conclusion. Right? So here you can see these E1, E2, E3, which we represented here, the equivalent of this E1, E2, E3, by E1 days, E2 days, E3 days, are nothing but your well-known formulas, right? Which is maybe true or it may be false. Okay, so there may be the atomic formulas are called WFF. If you have taken PQ, these all things are called as your WFF, like negation P, P or P and Q, P or Q, P implies Q, or P by implication Q, or for all X, P, X, there exists X, P, X, all are true. So there are some examples of the valid WFFs. So you can see here, I have written main John. So John is a constant, right? John is a constant, main is a predicate. So it is a valid WFF. Pilot, father of Bill. Father of is a function. Bill is a constant, and it is a predicate. Pilot is a predicate. So it is allowed. Similarly, here you can say a predicate, binary predicate. This is a binary predicate. You are going to get also the binary predicate when you are using logical connectives. So it is a valid WFF. Similarly, other examples also you can go through. But you see, these particular statements are not called as your WFF. Like you can see, I have written P of X and Q of X, but this universal quantification is applied to the predicate, that is P, or you may apply to predicate Q, that is not valid. So that is not called as a WFF. Similarly, you can see here I am using a constant John, but I have negated that constant. So it is not also a WFF. Similarly, you can see I have written a function father of, but I am using predicate here. So function with a predicate argument is also not allowed. So it is not a WFF. Here you can see I have written a predicate, and instead of writing a variable here or a constant here, what I have written another two predicate, that is man or woman, man and woman. So it is also not a WFF. So you have to ensure that while you are representing English statement into first order predicate logic, you should not do it like this. They should be in a well-formed formula. If it is not a well-formed formula, you try to express in the well-formed formula. Otherwise, it will not make a meaningful conclusion. So a predicate or a WFF that has no variable, that is called as ground term. Sometimes we are writing the predicate with no variable. Then we call it a predicate. Like if you see this particular expression, if I write only A, B, C, D, then that is a predicate with no variable. Okay, but here you have used as a binary one. Here I have used a function inside the predicate. Here I have written a variable inside predicate. Here also a variable inside the predicate. Right? So this B, C, D, you can say they are called as unary predicate, and A is called as your binary predicate. And if you have not written, that is called as your ground atom because it has no variables. Then a WFF is said to be valid. Valid means it is true for all interpretation. And if it is true for some interpretation, then we call it a satisfied. And if it is not true for any of the interpretation, then we call it a inconsistent. Let us see in some example. Like I have taken two statements. One is B is clever, and I have written if X is clever, then X will succeed. Right? Two statements I have taken. So what I can make, if X is equal to Bill, I do not know what is the value of X here, but it is written for all X, whoever is X. So if I say this X is equal to Bill, then I can say this is P and this is P implies Q, right? If I will put X is equal to Bill, then it is nothing but clever Bill implies succeed Bill. So what I can make a conclusion, succeed Bill is true. So I can say succeed Bill is a logical consequence of this clever Bill succeed Bill. Okay, is certainly true since the WFF was assumed to be true and we are taking X is equal to Bill. So such type of interpretation you have to do in order to conclude a particular thing. See here, if you are taking clever Bill, succeed Bill, and it is P implies Q format, as if here it is in the P implies Q format, then you have to go for not P or Q, right? So I can write not clever Bill or succeed Bill. So this clever Bill and not clever Bill may be cancelled out. So you can see clever Bill is true, means not clever Bill is false. Therefore, succeed Bill must be true. So we conclude that if succeed Bill is true, it is a consequence of the clever Bill, and for all X clever X, succeed X. So in this way, you can apply the modus ponens in order to make a conclusion. Similarly, there is another rule you can go through, that is called as the modus tollens, right? There also you can apply to make a conclusion. So similarly, there is some equivalent expressions you can say not F is equal to false, and commutative law is there, associativity, distributive, De Morgan's law. Whatever we have discussed in the propositional logic, that is also applicable to the predicate logic. Okay, so you can say all the operations, most of the operations that are there in the propositional logic is available in the predicate logic, but the problems with the propositional logic is overcome in the predicate logic. Okay, now the last part of this talks that I will tell you, once you have expressed English sentence into the first order predicate logic, how you can make a meaningful conclusion, that I will tell you. So this process is called as resolution. Once you have converted into first order predicate logic, in order to conclude a thing, you have to perform the process of resolution. But in order to go for the resolution, first I will tell you how to convert into clause form. Once you convert everything into the clause form, then you can apply the resolution. So resolution requires that all statements be converted into a normalized clause form. Once you convert each statements, like previously we have said E1, E2, E3, three sentences are there. We have represented in E1 days, E2 days, E3 days. Okay, then I can apply the resolution once they all of these E1 days, E2 days, E3 days is converted to normalized clause form. So a clause is the disjunction of a number of literals. Okay, and the ground clause is one. Obviously, the ground atom means there is no variable. So ground clause means there is no variable occurs in the expression. And horn clause is a clause with at most one positive literal. So if you have one positive literal, you can claim that is a horn clause. So let us see how we are going to convert to the clause form. In order to convert a thing into the clause form, first you have to eliminate all implication and equivalent symbol or by implication or double implication. Like if an English statement is there, like not P or Q, okay, you have to, sorry, if the statement is P implies Q, you have to convert to not P or Q. You know both are equivalent. So if there is an implication sign is there, then you have to remove this implication sign. And if your implication sign, the equivalent one is not P or Q. Similarly, if you have an equivalent symbol, like if you have P implies P by implication of Q, so you know that it is nothing but P implies Q. Okay, P implies Q, and okay, and Q implies P. Okay, then you know that P implies Q is nothing but not P or Q. Okay, this is and this is not Q or P. So in the very first step, if such statements are there, whether implication or by implication is there, you have to convert like this. Okay, that is the first step. Second step is move negation symbol into individual atom. If there is a negation P is there, so you have to apply this negation inside negation P, so that negation will be cancelled. Similarly, if you have negation of for all x, f of x, where f is a predicate, so if you apply negation of for all is there exists x, and negation of f of x is negation of f of x, right? You have to convert like this. Or in this case, you can see negation of there exists x is nothing but for all x, negation of f of x. So that is the second part, that you have to move the negation. Third part, you have to rename the variables. Sometimes what happens, for all x and there exists x, we are using the same variable for all x and there exists x, but means universal quantification or and existential quantification, we are doing the same thing. If such a case is there, you have to avoid it. So rename variables if necessary, so that all remaining quantifiers have the different variable assignments. Like here you can see in the statement, this is a for all x px, there exists x qx. So you can see universal quantification and existential quantification, they all used the variable x. So what I can do, I have to use another variable or rename a second dummy variable x to the different variable, that is y. So instead of this x, I have applied y. Okay, so p of x, and I have changed this there exists x to there exists y. So accordingly, the qx is changed to q of y. And note that this x is applicable to qx. This x is not related to your universal quantification. That is the third step in order to convert to the closed form. Okay, fourth step is you have to apply the spolemization by replacing all existentially quantified variables with a spolem function, or deleting all corresponding existential quantifier. You have to eliminate both things and you have to apply the spolem constants as well in the fourth step. Fifth step is you have to drop all universal quantifiers, put the remaining expression into conjunctive normal form. Conjunctive normal form, that is nothing but disjunctions are moved down to literal. That is the sixth step. Fifth step, then drop all conjunctions also. Symbol, writing each clause previously connected by the conjunction on a separate line. Each and every clause you have to write in a separate line. So let us take an example to understand these 6 steps. Suppose I will tell you, I have an English statement that is not A implies B or C implies A. I will tell you to apply the clause from by carry out this 6-step process. So what is our first step? The first step is we have to remove this implication. How I am going to remove this implication? You know that A implies B is nothing but not A or B. For C implication A is nothing but not C implication A. Okay, so I have done the step 1. Step 2 is that you have to take negation inside. So if you take negation of A, that is A, negation of this or is and, negation of B is negation of B. Similarly, negation of C and A. Okay, the step 2 is over. Step 3 is you have to rename the variable and apply the stolen function, which is not required here because I have taken without any variable. I have directly taken the predicate. Fifth step is nothing but you have to drop all the universal quantification if there. Otherwise, you have to convert it into conjunctive normal form. So you have to apply the law here. Like you can see here, I can do A or not C or A. That is my first expression. Similarly, and with not B, with not B or not C and or A. So that is my second expression. Okay. And if I simplify that, you know that 1 or 1 is always 1. So A or A is A only. So this may be simplified like this. And in the second expression, it is not B, not C and A. So it will be like this. Okay. Finally, I have to drop the conjunctions and I have to write each and every one as a clause form. That means I will take the first part that the clause form is A or not C, and in the second part that is not B or not C or A. That is the second part I am writing in a separate line. So in this way, you have to convert the sentence into the clause form. Now let us see this example. You can see Leo is a lion. So I am writing Leo is lion. Leo is a constant, lion is a predicate. All lions are ferocious. So I can write all X, lion X, ferocious X. Then I am saying Leo is ferocious. That is my conclusion. So how we can do it? Because it is a constant, Leo is a constant, X is a variable. So you have to claim that X is equal to A, or you have to tell that A is a part of X. Then only you can claim. So I am writing P of A, and for all X, Px, Qx. So if it is applicable for all X, and it is also applicable for a particular constant A. So I can make a conclusion by the help of modus ponens that Q of A is also true. Next is the resolution. Once you have formed everything into the clause form, you can apply the process of resolution. These algorithms you have to apply for the process of resolution. First is convert the given proposition into clause form. We have seen an example in which I told you how to convert the English statement to first order predicate logic, first order predicate logic to clause form. So in the first step, you have to ensure that all propositions are available in the clause form. Second is convert the negation of the sentence to be proved into the clause form. Okay. Third step is to combine the clauses into a set. Fourth is iteratively apply the resolution to the set and add the resultant to the set. So whenever you are combining two statements, you are going to get a new statement. That is called your resultant. That resultant you have to add to the set. Fifth is continue until no further resultant can be obtained or a null clause is obtained. If you have taken the proof by disproof, if you take the negation of the proof, that is disproof. So finally you are going to get a null clause. That null clause signifies whatever statement you have taken, that is true. So let us take a small example to understand this resolution principle. Suppose you have a 4 English statement like if a triangle is equilateral, then the triangle is isosceles, and if a triangle is isosceles, then two sides AB and AC are equal. If AB and AC are equal, then angle B and angle C are equal, and ABC is a equilateral triangle. So these are the 4 English statement is given to you. What you have to prove? You have to prove angle B is equal to angle C. You have to convert these 4 into propositional logic or first order predicate logic. After converting into the logic, you have to apply the process of resolution in order to prove that angle B is equal to angle C, either by converting into null clause or either by reaching to this particular clause. Right? So let us see how we are going to do. If a triangle is equilateral, as we have mentioned, ABC is a equilateral triangle. I am taking ABC is equilateral, then I can say ABC is isosceles. Right? So the equivalent statement is ABC is equilateral implies ABC is isosceles. Second one is if a triangle is isosceles, then two sides AB and AC are equal. So you can say isosceles ABC then equal ABSC. If this is true, then this part is also true. So whenever you have if in a statement, generally we are representing in the form of implication. Similarly, if AB and AC are equal, here you can see AB and AC are equal, then what conclusion you can make? Equal BC, means angle B is equal to angle C. And finally, ABC is an equilateral triangle, so I am taking equilateral ABC. And I have to prove angle B is equal to angle C. That is equal B comma C. Right? So let us see how I am doing it. So I am converting into the clause form. I am removing this implication. If I am removing implication, then P implies Q is going to be not P or Q. Similarly, there is an implication here. So I am removing this implication. So it is negation of isosceles ABC or equal AB comma AC. Similarly, equal ABAC implication equal BC is nothing but not equal ABAC or equal BC and equilateral ABC. Right? So once you have converted into the clause form, you can apply the principle of resolution. Right? See how I am applying. So I have taken this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things, and I have taken the disprove. Disprove means I have to prove equal BC, means angle B is equal to C. So if I take the disprove, it indicates that not equal B comma C. So that is my fifth clause. So see here, I am taking this fifth clause here. This is our fifth clause, and I am taking the third clause. Okay, that is not equal BC and equal BC. So if I take this one, equal BC and not equal BC will be cancelled out. So by combining 5, 3, I am going to get equal AB comma AC, which is my sixth statement. Similarly, I have taken equal ABAC, that is the sixth one, and isosceles ABC equal ABAC, that is my second statement. By combining 6 and 2, I am getting isosceles of ABC, that is my seventh one. So I am taking seventh one and I am taking the first statement. By combining these two, I am going to get equilateral of ABC. Okay, which is my eighth one. And if you see, equilateral ABC is already there in the fourth statement. If I take eighth statement and fourth statement, finally I am going to get a null clause of 5. As we are going to get null clause, so this disprove is failed. It indicates that angle B is equal to angle C. You have disproved it, that angle B is not equal to angle C. So in this way, you can apply the process of resolution in order to find a meaningful conclusion. In the last part, I will tell you about the process of forward chaining. You can apply, once you have understood this part, you can apply the forward chaining process. So assume that in my expert system, I have knowledge base. In my knowledge base, I have this following knowledge, but I have to accumulate some more knowledge. Like here you can see, I have some knowledge in my knowledge base. We have Y and D implies Z, X and B and E implies Y, A implies X, C implies L, L implies L and M implies M. But in my database, I have only 5 terms. One is A, B, C, D and E. So I know these A, B, C, D, E is true. A, B, C, D is true because that is there in my database. I kept in my database. So by going through this process, that is A, B, C, D, E, I want to apply the forward chaining process so that I can accumulate new knowledge and I can update in the database. For example, you can see I am going to the first statement. Let me number this statement 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In my database, I know A, B, C, D, E, right? In the first statement, Y and D is there. I have no knowledge about Y, right? In my database, Y is not there. So I cannot infer that Z is true. If in my knowledge, in my database, Y is there, D is also there, then I can say Z is true. So I have to speak first one. I am going to the second statement. It is saying X and B and E. So B is true. E is also true, that is there in my database, but X is not there in the database. So I cannot make a conclusion that Y is true. I am coming to the third statement. So here A is true, that I know A is true. If A is true, X is also true. by the help of the implication rule. So what I am doing, I am adding X into the database. So in my database, in addition to A to E, now X is there in the database. Coming to the fourth one, I am saying C implies L. C is there in the database, then L is also true. So I am inserting L into my database. So if a corresponding match is there in your knowledge base, the equivalent one or the right side part of the application is fired. Fired means it is added into the database. Now the third part is over and fourth part is over. Coming to the fifth part, L and M. So L is there in the database, M is not there in the database, so I cannot fire N, or I cannot make a conclusion N. Now I will again go for the second cycle. In second cycle, I found Y and D. So D is there in the database. You can see D is there in the database, but Y is not there in the database. So I cannot. I have to skip the equation. The first one, first statement 1. Next is in my database X is there, B is there, and E is there. So as X and B and E is there, so I can infer Y. And Y I am adding into the database. Now I have added a new element in the cycle 2, that is Y. Then I am going to the last statement. These two are already over. So I am taking L and M. L is there, but M is not there in the database, so I cannot infer M. Okay. So I have to go for the cycle number 3. In cycle number 3, I have seen Y is there in the database and D is there in the database. So I can infer Z. So I can add Z into the database. If Z is there in the database and L is there in the database, right? Once Z is inserted into the database, we will check the last statement. But in this statement, L is there in the database, but M is not there in the database. If M is not in the dataset, N cannot be added into the database. So except the last statement, all other statements can be inferred using this particular knowledge base and database. So this process is called as a forward chaining. In the reverse one, that is the backward chaining, what we are doing, you have database and you have knowledge base. What we are doing here, we are doing the reverse process. If P implies Q, in the previous case, you are doing with P and you are finding a conclusion Q. And here what you are doing, you have to choose Q and you have to infer Q. Like here you can see in the first expression, okay, you have Z in the right side. So I want Z. So Z is my goal. So in order to achieve this goal, what I need Y and D, which is not there in my database. So what I will do, I will go on searching. My sub goal is either Y or D. Because if I fulfill my sub goal, because Z is dependent on Y and D, so Z is my goal, so Y and D is my sub goal, where D is there in the database, so I need not worry. So I have to choose my sub goal as Y. So I have taken sub goal is Y. Then I am finding an expression where Y can be inferred. In the second statement, Y is there, but Y, this sub goal, it depends upon another sub goal, that is X and B and E, where B and E is already there in the database. So I have to take X as my next sub goal. So I have taken X as my sub goal. And X can be derived using A, which is there in the database. So as A you know, X you can solve. Once X is solved, Y is solved and Z is also solved. Now I can insert this X, Y and Z into the database. So this process of performing the operation is called as your backward chaining. So that is, once you are representing everything into the knowledge base, which we have seen in the process of resolution, you can apply the forward chaining and backward chaining, which we are using in export system. Okay. So these are all about the knowledge representation. So this is the reference. If you have any questions, you can ask. This is all from my side. If you have any questions, you can ask.
Participants are requested to post any queries if they have in the chat box.
somebody has written that in DMS subject we studied these rules. Yes, it is true. But the type of resolution and clause form, forward chaining and backward chaining is not there in the discrete mathematics, although you know some of the rules. But these rules you have to apply in order to represent the knowledge and in order to infer a particular thing. Any other question? Thank you, madam.
Uh, Sir, it seems there are no questions. So can we
No.
conclude this session?
Yes, yes, yes. So
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you everyone for your patience listening. Thank you to our organizer to give me an opportunity to speak in this particular workshop. So thank you everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for joining these sessions and enlightening all the participants with your views regarding the representation of various knowledge and even conveying various things regarding this artificial intelligence in yesterday's class. Thank you so much for your valuable resource, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very much.
participants. So tomorrow's session will start at 10 a.m. So it will be handled by Dr. T. Ramalingeshwar Rao from IIT Kharagpur, and the topic will be on unsupervised learning. So thank you so much, participants, for joining. So tomorrow you are requested to join by 9:50 a.m. Thank you so much.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
I am Shabuddin from Vasavi Engineering College.
Yes, sir. Tell me, sir.
Sir, regarding attendance link, is it not shared with us
Just now I shared in the chat box, right, sir?
in the chat box, huh?
Yes. I am
Okay, sir.
posting it once again. I am posting it once again.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.